Hey, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to jump back in time, like 4,500 years back, to check out one of the most incredible engineering marvels ever, the Great Pyramid of Giza. We're going to try and figure out how in the world ancient builders pulled off something that seems, well, impossible.
All right, to really get a feel for this thing, let's kick things off with a modern-day mystery. Just recently, researchers sent this little robot deep, deep inside the pyramid. And what did it find? Its path was totally blocked by a solid stone slab, a door that hasn't been opened for thousands of years. So the big question is, what's behind it? So they got this tiny drill, right? And they managed to poke a little hole through the stone and sneak a camera inside. What that camera saw, well, that's still a huge mystery. But before we even start guessing what they found, you gotta understand the absolutely mind-boggling scale of the place they were exploring.
Okay, first things first, let's talk about just how big this thing is. The Great Pyramid isn't just, big. It's one of the largest structures humans have ever built. And honestly, the scale is just really hard to wrap your head around.
Get this. The total weight of the Great Pyramid is a staggering 6 million tons. Yeah, that's a number so huge it's almost meaningless. So let's try to put that into a perspective we can actually understand.
Okay, so check this out. That's 6 million tons. That's the same weight as 12 Burj Khalifas, the tallest building in the world. And its base, it covers a massive 13 acres. You could literally fit 9 football fields inside it. It's just monumental.
So this all leads to the one big question, right? How? How did an ancient civilization, with no modern tools, no steel, no cranes, no laser levels, build something so massive and with such unbelievable precision that it's still standing today? You might think the first challenge was lifting those giant stones. But nope, the very first problem they had to solve was way more cosmic. It was about finding the pyramid's exact place on the planet. This is just incredible. With no compass, the pyramid's 4 sides are lined up almost perfectly with north, south, east, and west. We're talking an error of less than 1/10 of a degree. That's a level of accuracy that would be tough to get even today with all our tech. And they did it without a single compass. So how'd they pull it off? Well, their solution was as brilliant as it was simple. They just looked up to the stars. By tracking the fixed positions of the polar stars, they basically created a giant celestial compass. And that's how they oriented the pyramid with just breathtaking precision. Okay, so once they had it pointing in the right direction, they ran into their next massive hurdle. How do you create a perfectly flat, perfectly level base across 13 acres of rocky, uneven desert? I mean, if you mess this up, even by a little, the whole thing could come tumbling down. Their solution was pure genius. They dug these trenches all around the site, filled them up with water, and then boom, the water's surface gives you a perfect natural level. All they had to do was mark that water line and then chisel away everything above it. And just like that, they had a perfectly flat foundation across all 13 acres. All right, so they've got this perfectly aligned, perfectly level foundation. Now what? Now they need the building blocks. And we're talking about 2.3 million stone blocks, each one weighing several tons. This wasn't just a construction project. This was an absolute logistical nightmare. So here's another puzzle. How do you cut millions of these blocks without any steel tools? Their go-to tools were made of copper. And if you know anything about copper, you know it's pretty soft. It's just not going to cut it, literally, when you're trying to carve up massive blocks of limestone. So what did they do? Well, they did what humans do best. They innovated. They figured out that if you mix arsenic with copper, you create a much, much harder metal, a kind of early bronze. These new hardened chisels were finally strong enough to take on the massive job of shaping millions of those stones. Okay, so shaping the stones was one huge challenge. But moving them? That was a whole different ballgame. Some of these blocks weighed up to 50 tons. To give you some perspective, that's like trying to move 3 city buses at once. And they had to do that millions of times. What they set up was this incredible supply chain. The best limestone was quarried 250 kilometers away. From there, it was loaded onto huge boats and floated down the river, which basically acted as their superhighway. Once the stones got to Giza, a massive army of workers would haul them up these enormous earthen ramps to get them into place. But believe it or not, the hardest challenge was still to come. It was waiting for them deep inside the pyramid, in the king's chamber, where they had to use a material that was way tougher than limestone. Yeah, they used granite, and granite is one of the hardest stones on the planet, nearly as hard as diamond. Even their special hardened copper chisels were basically useless against it. For hundreds of years, experts were completely stumped. How in the world did they cut and shape this super hard rock? The answer was just another moment of pure outside-the-box genius. It wasn't about a sharper tool or a harder metal. Like the quote says, they figured out how to cut the world's hardest stone with a saw that had no teeth. So here's how it worked. They took a simple copper saw blade, but the saw blade itself didn't actually do the cutting. Instead, they poured sand into the groove. As the saw moved back and forth, the friction from the abrasive sand is what actually ground away the granite. Now, it was slow, painstaking work. It could take 4 months to cut a single block, but it worked. So we've figured out a lot of these engineering puzzles, right? We've a pretty good idea of how they aligned it, how they leveled it, and how they cut the stones. And yet, after all this time, the Great Pyramid still holds on tight to its biggest secrets. And that brings us full circle, right back to where we started. We still don't know for sure what the pyramid was really for, or exactly how many thousands of people it took to build. And yeah, that most tantalizing question of all, what did that little robot actually see behind that 4,500-year-old stone slab? You know, in the end, the Great Pyramid isn't really a story about aliens or some kind of lost ancient technology. It's something much more profound. It's a timeless monument to human ingenuity and teamwork. It's proof that with enough creativity and organized effort, we can make the impossible possible. It shows that the most powerful tool we've ever had has always been the human mind.